Welcome to the Australian Property Podcast, helping you achieve success in property. Featuring your host, Jonathan Preston.
Hi guys, thanks very much for tuning back into the show. So in today's episode, I want to talk about part 1 of 10 mistakes I made. If you'd like to get in touch, I'd love to hear from you. Send me an email, jp@australianpropertypodcast.com.au. Alright, let's get started. Alright, so for the first part of this, I'm going to go through from 10 down to 1. Basically, we're going to talk about the first 5 things that I guess I made mistakes on these, and they're basically things I wish I could have done better, basically. So the first one is I wish I'd started visiting open homes earlier. That way I think I would have had a much better idea, I guess, around properties in general from a much younger age. I could have, visited many places before actually having bought something. So I just kind of wish I had gotten used to that and started to really explore the markets in more detail, particularly areas that I could have bought in. But, it's just something that, I think that once you've seen enough properties, you get a bit of a sixth sense, if you will, for what's good value and what's not. And you get used to sort of properties that seem to be good and properties that you sort of turn up and you just think like, this doesn't fit in the price range. So that's something I wish I had sort of done better. Another thing I wish, so this is number 9, is that I wish I had made more concrete financial goals from when I was younger. So I've only really started to do this in recent times. Last year I had some goals, but they weren't, really sort of too concrete. I started to write down some of my long-term things I wanted to achieve, but I didn't make such concrete sort of plans. This year I really sat down and I spent a number of hours just sort of going through everything that I want to achieve, breaking down month by month the action steps to actually do that, and what the, 1 year goal sort of looks like in terms of a result. And look, my goals are pretty lofty, and a lot won't be able to be achieved immediately, but I think that's what goals are for. And some things, you do surpass. Like I did surpass some of my goals last year, but at the same time, some of them you don't hit. So the idea is that if you keep going in the right direction and you take, action steps and you write it down, which makes it more sort of concrete, then you will eventually probably achieve those. Next thing, so number 8, I wish I'd started to build groups of like-minded individuals earlier so that I could, throw around ideas and so that we could encourage each other toward financial success and to encourage each other to invest. So this is something I've done more in recent times, and I guess when I was younger, my parents always said that your friends, as you grow up and become an adult, won't necessarily be the people that you went to high school with. It ends up being people that you are more aligned with as a person, potentially, that you've met through workplaces and stuff like that. And I do still have all of my high school friends, which is amazing, but you definitely do end up making a lot of close friends with people that have interests that are very aligned with yours, and basically similar values and everything like that. And often you find these people in similar workplaces to yourself. So I guess it's an extension of that. And I think if you can sort of get people around you that are sort of on board with your plan and think along the same lines as you, then you will actually really achieve a lot more, because you'll actually have people around you that are sort of encouraging you and aren't sort of discouraging you. There's a saying that you're like the average of the 5 people you spend most time around. So if you have 5 people that are serious investors and are very successful, their mindset is going to be very different from 5 people who despise their jobs and Monday's the worst, and they'll waste all their money to try and bring themselves a tiny bit of happiness because the rest of their existence is so painful in their eyes. And look, I do feel for people who are stuck, but you want to find people that are going at least in the right direction. And basically having that social support around you where everyone's moving in the right direction and everyone's encouraging each other and everyone has similar values and beliefs, it's going to make a world of difference. It's going to give you that confidence to act, that confidence to move forward. And the people around you, they're going to encourage you as opposed to sort of give you negative, worries around what you're doing and what your plans are going forward. So number 7 is that I wish I'd stopped listening to people around me so closely and focused more on what the people who had gone before me and been successful had done. So let me give you an example of this. So you might talk to people that you work with or just, I don't know, people you know from somewhere, and you might say, oh, look, I'm thinking of investing in property, and they'll say, oh, wow, really? You're going to buy now? The market's overpriced and, rates are going to go up soon. And look, what happens if you get horrible tenants? I had a property and I had these terrible tenants and they were a nightmare, so I had to sell it, and I'll never own a property again. They'll happily share their horror stories and the stories of their brother and their sister and their uncle and all kinds of stuff that's happened to them. Then you say, oh, look, well, I'm also considering buying some shares. And they'll say, oh, wow, really? That sounds risky. And, the next crash is going to kill you. And I think the only people who make money in shares are, the people who sell them and the people who do it for a living. And, a lot of risk there. I don't know if you should do that. Then you might say, oh, look, well, the other thing I'm thinking about is starting a business. And they'll go, oh, have you heard that the majority of people, they start a business and in the first 5 years, they fail. And they'll be like, oh, my brother had a shop and, it was really good for a year or two. And then these competitors opened up nearby. And ever since then, he lost all his sales. And, in the end, he ended up going bankrupt and losing everything and losing his home. And, I don't know if I'd go into a business, I think you should just get a nice, stable job. And so, this is the kind of advice that you'll get from the average person. And, there'll be a reason why you shouldn't do everything. What you need to do is find people who have achieved real success in any of the fields that you're looking to achieve success in. Now, I do think this is increasingly difficult in some industries, particularly with the internet. There's a lot of scams where people are, look at me, I'm 24 and I drive a Lamborghini, and it's all because I download some program and it makes money for me while I sleep, and I only have to put $1,000 in, and you've got to steer clear of stuff like that. But the stuff where someone has for the long term put a lot of work in, they've invested, and you believe that what they've done is legitimate, whether it be building a significant business or acquiring a significant property portfolio, or they've meticulously saved and acquired quality shares, and over the years it's compounded, i.e. Warren Buffett, this kind of thing. If you're able to find people who have gone before you and, study them, you'll often see that they will say that while it wasn't easy, it most definitely is achievable. And that basically, the life that they're living is so far, I guess, beyond and more potentially satisfying than the vast majority of these naysayers who will give you the negative advice and the negative concerns around, oh, you wouldn't want to do that, you're going to lose money for sure, etc., etc. But you study these people who are amazingly successful, and they'll often say that, you really should do it, because the result and the potential gains that you make, not only in terms of money, but also in terms of the lifestyle and the satisfaction that you'll create is very much worth the hard work that you'll have to put in. Number 6, just to round out the first part of this series, is that I wish I'd been in more of a hurry to become successful, basically. A friend of mine once said to me that he'd never met someone in such a hurry to get rich as I was. But to be honest, I really think I should have been even hungrier. I think it was when I was about 25 or so that I sort of started to think a bit more about the future, and I started to think that, while I may earn a little bit more, each year in my job and as I progress and everything, that it's really time to take my future into my own hands, and that if I really want to be successful at a top level and live an amazing life that's beyond the standard kind of grind, that I need to actually, take things into my own hands, and I need to become successful. And, prior to that, while I had started saving a bit, there was always kind of this concept in my mind that I didn't need to put too much away because I was still young, and that as the years progressed, I would end up making significantly more money. So kind of the problem would take care of itself later. But it's like, when does later really come? And the longer you leave it, it means the longer you have to wait until you get to live this amazing life where, money's not so much an issue, and you get to really, do the things you want to do. You get more choice, and in terms of, like having a good job, and in terms of like travel, and you get so much more freedom overall. And so, the sooner that you take your destiny into your own hands, the sooner that you'll be happy, and the sooner that you'll have choices. So you've got to realize that, to do this, there might be sacrifices you'll have to make. And, the reality is that, a lot of it is delayed gratification. And if you make those sacrifices up front, then you will, really reap the rewards later. And the reason it's so important to do it while you're young is because of the fact of compounding. So if you do it while you're young, you will have the years on your side as the investments compound, which is what's going to give you the most amazing result over time. It's not really making the right moves at the right time. It's being in the, investment markets for a significant period that's going to give you such an amazing gain, because the growth over the years will compound, and that's what's going to make you, seriously wealthy. So that rounds out the first part of this series, and I will continue in the next one. Thank you so much, and I appreciate you tuning in. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Please subscribe to the podcast, and if you've enjoyed the show, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes and recommend the show to any friends that you think might benefit. Thanks again for listening, and we hope to see you.